Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to calmly step into the shoes of senior engineers diagnosing a critical system failure in neural network training. We're not looking at some mysterious law of nature here. Nope, we're looking at a broken piece of machinery, and we're going to install a brilliant, elegant patch.
Here's our logical blueprint for today. We'll start by fixing the broken system, then move into the gear shifter intuition, reverse engineer the mathematical engine, look at independent layer scaling, and finally, wrap up with the atom reveal.
All right, part 1, fixing the broken system and diagnosing the loss landscape. Let's dive right into why standard gradient descent is fundamentally broken when the loss landscape gets highly non-uniform.
So, the core problem standard gradient descent faces is honestly pretty dangerous. Without adaptive steps, applying just a single global learning rate to all your parameters means the system fails in two completely opposite ways. If your global step size is too big, the optimizer violently diverges. It basically bounces right off the steep cliffs of a lost valley. But if you shrink that step size down to play it safe, your system agonizingly stalls out on flat terrain, just barely inching toward the solution. Early attempts to fix this problem, like Adagrad back in the early 2010s, tried introducing adaptive learning rates by adding up a history of all past gradients. The catch? It accumulated infinite gradient history. Because that number only ever got bigger, the learning rate eventually got crushed completely down to zero. The optimizer literally just ran out of gas. And this critical failure is exactly what prompted AI pioneer Geoff Hinton to drop a live on-the-fly patch to his students during a 2012 Coursera lecture.
That patch? It was RMSProp. Hinton's fix was to replace Adagrad's infinite accumulation with an exponentially decaying moving average. By doing this, he allowed the optimizer to effectively forget old gradients. The learning rate could dynamically shrink when slopes were consistently steep, keeping things from flying off the rails, but crucially, it could safely bounce right back up when the slopes flattened out.
Moving on to Section 2, the gear shifter intuition, where we'll look at automatic speed control. To really get this, we've got to translate the abstract math into a physical intuition of a car navigating a rough mountain path.
Think of vanilla SGD like driving a car up a mountain while you're stuck in a single, rigid gear. It's a bumpy, dangerous ride. RMSProp, on the other hand, acts like a flawless automatic transmission. Imagine driving that car. As soon as you hit a sheer, steep gradient, a small gauge on your dashboard drops down. The car automatically downshifts, dropping the learning rate so you move carefully and don't fly off the cliff. But the second the road flattens out into a plane, watch that gauge jump right back up. The car upshifts, taking massive strides to cover flat ground quickly. It's automatic speed control reacting instantly to the steep hiss directly under your tires.
Now for Section 3, the mathematical engine. Let's put our mechanic hats on, pop the hood, and reverse engineer exactly how this automatic gear shifting fix actually works step by step.
The algorithm operates mechanically in two very distinct steps. First, it calculates an exponentially weighted moving average of the squared gradients. This acts as our steepness gauge. Then, for step 2, it updates the parameters by taking your global learning rate and dividing it by the square root of that moving average.
Now I want you to think about this for a second. Why do we square the gradients in that first step? Well, we square them to completely strip away the sign or direction of the step. To shift gears properly, we only need to know exactly how steep the slope is. We really don't care which way the slope is pointing, we just need pure, unadulterated magnitude.
But as engineers, we always have to beware of the epsilon trap. Notice that tiny constant in the formula, 10 to the power of -8. We add this incredibly tiny number to the denominator to prevent a catastrophic divide by zero failure. Think about it. If a gradient stays flat for a while, its moving average drops to zero. Dividing by zero gives you a fatal not a number error, which is especially lethal if you're underflowing an FP16 mixed precision on a GPU. So that tiny constant, that is our ultimate safety net.
Let's see how this actually builds in practice. If we track a single parameter across 2 iterations, you'll notice that as steep gradients persist, say holding steady at 4.0, the moving average cleanly inflates from 1.6 up to 3.04. And because that moving average lives in the denominator, it shifts our effective learning rate safely down from 0.079 to 0.057. The gear shifted down automatically, exactly as we designed it to.
Section 4, independent layer scaling and why global rates fail. To fully grasp why a single global learning rate just doesn't cut it, we have to look at the gradient statistics across entirely different layers of our network. If we analyze the gradient distribution for an early layer in the network, you're going to see wide variance and violently steep slopes.
These parameters absolutely need our gear shifter to heavily downshift those specific weights so they don't spiral entirely out of control.
Conversely, if you look at a late layer during that exact same forward pass, you've got microscopic, tiny gradients. These weights require an independent, massive upshift to avoid stalling out the training entirely. A single global learning rate literally cannot satisfy both the early layer and the late layer at the same time.
This visual contrast right here is absolute proof of the problem. RMSProp succeeds precisely because it doesn't just apply one driving rule to the whole car. Instead, it scales the suspension independently for every single wheel, on every single axis, across millions or even billions of parameters. Finally, Section 5, the atom reveal. Let's look at how this specific, brilliant engineering patch became the foundational DNA for modern AI.
Now, RMSProp was originally deployed to save recurrent neural networks, adapting instantly to non-stationary shifts as time steps evolved. It was also used to stabilize really noisy reinforcement learning agents where different workers might be sending back wildly conflicting gradient updates. But its true, monumental legacy is hiding right in plain sight within modern transformers and large language models. Here is the reality. The Atom Optimizer, which is the absolute default engine powering everything from GPT-4 to Llama today, is not some magical new law of optimization. It's really just a combination of the precise mechanical lessons we've just diagnosed.
This is the true aha moment of our explainer. If you literally take the momentum equation, which builds speed in a consistent direction, and you bolt it directly on top of the RMSProp equation, which acts as the automatic transmission controlling the gear magnitude, you achieve ultimate engineering synergy. That combination is the atom equation. Whenever you hear about atom training massive models, what you are actually watching is RMSProp dynamically scaling the learning rate right there in the denominator.
So now that you can intuitively shift gears through the most chaotic lost landscapes, and you see that our most advanced tools are really just logical accumulations of mechanical fixes, it leaves us wondering something. What other mysterious black box algorithms out there are really just simple, elegant engineering corrections waiting to be reverse engineered? Keep that in the back of your mind as you continue exploring the field. Thanks for joining me in this explainer.